The chatter of other diners faded into a soft murmur as August Keene studied his wife's face across the table. 10 years of marriage, and still, he found himself captivated by the elegant curve of her cheekbones and the way her blue-gray eyes caught the candlelight. But tonight, something was off. "You've barely touched your appetizer," August said, setting down his fork. Rhea looked up, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "My stomach's a bit off. Nothing to worry about." August nodded, unconvinced. The restaurant, one of Austin's most exclusive, hummed with activity around them. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, and the quiet efficiency of the waitstaff created a cocoon of refinement that had cost him a small fortune to secure for their anniversary. "We could have rescheduled if you weren't feeling well," he offered. "On our 10th anniversary? I wouldn't dream of it." Rhea reached across the table and squeezed his hand briefly. "Let's order some wine. That might help." August signaled the sommelier, but his attention remained on Rhea. She'd been distant lately, subtle shifts in behavior that his analytical mind couldn't help but catalog. Tonight, she'd worn the silver pendant he'd bought her for their 5th anniversary, but not the matching earrings. Her makeup was immaculate, but heavier than usual. Her posture was rigid, her laugh a beat too slow. The waiter approached with their main courses, setting down plates of expertly prepared beef tenderloin with truffle reduction. "Anything else I can get for you, sir?" the waiter asked, his voice professionally neutral. "No, thank you," August replied, adjusting his plate slightly. That's when he saw a small folded piece of paper tucked partially under his plate. With a casual movement, he picked it up while reaching for his napkin. "Excuse me for a moment," he said to Rhea, pocketing the note. "I need to use the restroom." In the privacy of a bathroom stall, August unfolded the note with steady hands. 5 words in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. "Don't eat. It's poison." A cold wave washed through him. His mind, trained through years of complex programming challenges to systematically evaluate problems, immediately began assessing possibilities. A prank? A mistake? The correct target? August splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, his blue eyes now sharp with focus. He looked utterly ordinary, a successful software engineer celebrating an anniversary. Nothing about him suggested he should be the recipient of such a warning. He returned to the table, his demeanor composed despite the alarm bells ringing in his head. "Everything okay?" Rhea asked, her fork poised over her untouched meal. "Fine," August replied, sliding back into his seat. "Just needed a moment." He watched her carefully as she took a small bite of her food, then set her fork down again. "I think I'll just have some water," she said. "This rich food isn't agreeing with me tonight." August nodded, pretending to take a bite of his own meal while actually depositing it in his napkin. "Maybe we should skip dessert and head home early," he suggested. "You can get comfortable, and I'll make you some tea." Relief flickered across Rhea's face. "That sounds perfect, actually." As August paid the bill, his mind methodically sorted through the events of the evening. The note wasn't a random occurrence. Someone had deliberately warned him, and Rhea's behavior, her reluctance to eat, her eagerness to leave aligned too perfectly with a warning to be coincidental. The universe operated on logic and patterns. August had built his career understanding those patterns. Now, he would apply that same disciplined approach to understanding what was happening in his marriage. Streetlights swept rhythmically across the interior of their Audi as August drove through downtown Austin. Beside him, Rhea stared out the passenger window, her profile illuminated in intermittent flashes. "The restaurant really outdid themselves tonight," she said, breaking the silence. That wine pairing was exceptional. August noted the forced casualness in her tone. "You hardly drank any," he replied evenly. "I told you my stomach feels off. Maybe I'm coming down with something." She turned to face him. "Did you enjoy the food at least?" "It looked impressive," he said, deliberately vague. "Not sure it lived up to the price tag." "That's how these high-end places are," Rhea said with a dismissive wave. "More style than substance." August tightened his grip on the steering wheel. More style than substance. An apt description for things beyond overpriced restaurants. "Do you remember our first anniversary?" Rhea asked. "That Italian place on 6th Street? where the waiter spilled red wine all over your new shirt. I remember August said, "You helped me soak it out when we got home." Rhea smiled, seeming genuinely nostalgic. "We were so broke back then. You were still at that startup, working insane hours." "Things change," August said. The familiar landscape of their neighborhood came into view: manicured lawns, tasteful modern homes, the trappings of upper-middle-class success. "For the better," Rhea added quickly. "Look at everything we've built together." August pulled into their driveway, the automatic lights illuminating their contemporary home. For bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, an open-concept living area, all the checkboxes of success properly ticked. He helped Rhea out of the car, noticing how she subtly pulled away from his touch. Inside, Rhea slipped off her heels at the door. "I think I'll take a shower and head to bed early. Rain, check on that tea." "Of course," August replied. "I have some work emails to catch up on anyway. I'll be in my office." He watched her climb the stairs, her movements deliberately measured, as if she were performing for an audience. Once she disappeared into the master bathroom, August stood motionless in the entryway, listening to the distant sound of the shower, starting point 10 years. A decade of shared meals, vacations, arguments, reconciliations. A decade of building what he thought was a partnership. Now, standing in the home they'd chosen together, August felt like a stranger. He walked to the kitchen and retrieved a bottle of water from the refrigerator. His reflection distorted in the stainless steel door, stretched and warped, just like his perception of his marriage had become in the span of a single evening. The shower upstairs shut off. August took his water and headed to his home office, closing the door behind him with a soft click. August's home office was a testament to his ordered mind. 3 monitors arranged precisely on a minimalist desk. Bookshelves organized by subject matter and then alphabetically. A whiteboard covered in neat handwriting, project timelines, and code snippets for his latest work project that he locked the door, then removed the note from his pocket and placed it on his desk. The paper was high quality, probably from the restaurant's own stock. The handwriting was precise, each letter carefully formed. Not Rhea's looping script, which he knew intimately from a decade of birthday cards and shopping lists. August opened a drawer and withdrew a small file containing various documents with Rhea's handwriting: birthday cards, notes, grocery lists. He compared them methodically to the warning note. Definitely not the same hand. S.O. who had written it? A waiter? A concerned patron who'd overheard something? And more importantly, was there any truth to the warning? August pulled his keyboard toward him and began to type. A new document, organized chronologically. He titled it "Behavioral Changes" and began listing observations. 3 months ago. Rhea joins new gym/wellness center 2 months ago. New password on phone. Previously shared passwords. 2 months ago. Girls' night increases from monthly to weekly 6 weeks ago. New clothing purchases higher end than usual. 1 month ago. Started cleanse diet from new nutrition coach 3 weeks ago. Changed perfume 2 weeks ago. Unexplained 2-hour absence when grocery shopping individually. Each item was innocuous. Together, they formed a pattern that August couldn't ignore. He opened his browser and logged into their shared cloud storage. Rhea's phone automatically backed up to this account, a security measure they'd implemented years ago after she'd lost her previous device. The most recent backup was from yesterday. August navigated through folders, finding nothing immediately suspicious. Text messages were minimal, mostly logistics and brief exchanges with friends he recognized. Her call history showed frequent calls to a number he didn't recognize. August ran the number through a reverse lookup service. Adrian Sutter, nutritionist and wellness coach. The website showed a fit man in his early 40s with perfect teeth and a practiced smile. August leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. A nutrition coach. That aligned with Rhea's recent focus on clean eating and her new gym routine. But why the secrecy? Why the password-protected phone? Why the warning note at dinner? He returned to the cloud backup, diving deeper. Deleted items were more difficult to access, but not impossible for someone with his technical expertise. After nearly an hour of methodical work, August found a cache of deleted photos. His stomach tightened as the first image loaded: Rhea in their bed, naked except for the silver pendant he'd given her. Alone in this photo. But the implication of others being present during the photo session was clear. August's face remained impassive as he continued through the recovered files. His heartbeat remained steady, his breathing controlled. Only the whitening of his knuckles as he gripped the edge of his desk betrayed any emotion. More photos appeared. Rhea with a man he now recognized as Adrian Sutter. Not just any affair photos, these were intimate, explicit, taken in hotel rooms, in Adrian's office, in the front seat of Adrian's car. Then came the text messages, hundreds of them, recovered from deleted archives. August read through them methodically, cataloging information. A is getting suspicious, Rhea had written 6 weeks ago. They always do eventually, Adrian had replied. But we have options. I'm not sure about this, Rhea texted 2 weeks later. It seems extreme. It's perfectly natural, Adrian responded. I've helped others through similar situations. Trust me. And yesterday. Tomorrow night? After dinner. Everything's ready. Just make sure he eats it all. August closed the browser and sat motionless, processing. The evidence aligned perfectly with the warning. His wife and her lover had planned to poison him at their anniversary dinner. He should feel rage, betrayal, heartbreak. Instead, he felt an icy clarity descending like a protective shield. The problem was now defined, and defined problems could be solved. August pulled out a fresh notepad and began writing again, this time creating a structured investigation plan. He would need allies, evidence, a strategy. 10 years of marriage had ended tonight, though Rhea didn't know it yet. What would replace? It was a precisely executed plan to ensure that those who had betrayed him would face consequences proportional to their actions. August Keene, senior software engineer and deceived husband, began to map out his code of justice. The university cafe buzzed with the energy of young minds fueled by caffeine and ambition. August sat at a corner table, watching the door. 3 days had passed since the anniversary dinner, and he'd maintained a careful facade of normalcy at home. He went to work, made appropriate small talk with Rhea, and kept his discoveries locked away in encrypted files on his private server. Leo Gale pushed through the cafe door, scanning the room until he spotted August. Tall and lanky, with perpetually disheveled hair, Leo looked every bit the academic he was. He approached August's table with a warm smile. 10 years, and you still look exactly the same, Leo said, sliding into the seat across from August. It's almost disturbing. Disciplined living. August replied with a faint smile. You, on the other hand, are sporting some distinguished gray. Leo ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. The students do that. Every semester adds another patch. He studied August's face. Your message was cryptic. Need to discuss a concerning pattern. What's going on? August had met Leo during their undergraduate years, before August switched from psychology to computer science. Leo had stayed the course, eventually earning his PhD and securing a teaching position at Austin University. More importantly, he'd remained a friend even as their paths diverged, one of the few people August truly trusted. I need your professional perspective, August said, keeping his voice low. And your discretion. Leo's expression grew serious. Of course. August placed a manila folder on the table. My wife is having an affair with her nutrition coach. They planned to poison me at our anniversary dinner 3 nights ago. Leo's eyes widened, but he didn't interrupt. I was warned anonymously. August continued. I've since verified the affair and found text messages suggesting they were planning to dose me with something. I need to understand what I'm dealing with, both psychologically and practically. Leo slowly opened the folder, scanning the printed text messages and photos August had selected. His face remained professionally neutral, though his fingers tightened on the paper. Jesus, August, he finally said. Have you gone to the police? With what? Text messages about making me eat something? Photos proving my wife is unfaithful but not criminal? I need more. Leo nodded slowly. What do you need from me? 2 things. First, your psychological assessment of what might motivate someone to take this path. Second, your help in tracking patterns and gathering evidence. Leo rubbed his chin. The psychological component is complex. Affairs happen for many reasons: boredom, unmet needs, opportunity, character flaws. But escalating to harm. He paused, thinking. That suggests either significant external pressure or a more disturbing psychological profile. And this Adrian Sutter? The nutrition coach. If he's suggesting poison as a solution, this isn't his first rodeo, Leo said grimly. Manipulators like this usually have a history. They identify vulnerable targets and exploit them. August nodded. This aligned with his own analysis. I need to know if he's done this before. I have access to academic databases, court records. I can help research him, Leo offered. But August. He leaned forward. What's your endgame here? Divorce? Prosecution? Justice? August said simply. Proportional consequences for their actions. Leo studied his friend's face. You're remarkably calm for someone who just discovered his wife is plotting with her lover. Emotions cloud judgment, August replied. I need clarity right now. Compartmentalization only works for so long, Leo warned. Eventually, you'll have to process this. I'll process it when I've resolved it, August said firmly. Will you help me? Leo closed the folder and slid it back across the table. Of course I will. But promise me one thing: no matter what we find, we stay within legal boundaries. Evidence gathering only. August gave a single, decisive nod. Agreed. Then let's get started, Leo said. Tell me everything else you know about this Adrian Sutter. The next morning, August sat in his car across the street from Austin Wellness, a sleek, modern building of glass and brushed steel. According to their website, they offered everything from nutritional counseling to specialized fitness training. Adrian Sutter was listed as their head nutrition consultant. August checked his watch. 9:15 a.m. According to the schedule he'd found on Ria's cloud account, she had an appointment with Adrian at 9:30 a.m. She told August she was meeting a friend for breakfast. At T9:22, Ria's white SUV pulled into the parking lot. August watched as she checked her makeup in the rearview mirror before exiting the vehicle. She looked confident, happy even, as she walked into the building. August started a timer on his phone. If this was truly a professional nutrition consultation, it should last approximately an hour. While waiting, he opened his laptop and connected to a secure hotspot. Leo had sent over preliminary research on Adrian Sutter last night. The man's professional credentials were legitimate licensed dietitian with a master's degree in nutritional science from a reputable university. His business seemed successful, with glowing online reviews and a respectable social media following. But there were gaps in his history. A 2-year period where he seemed to disappear from public records, followed by a relocation to Austin from Seattle. No criminal record, but a few civil complaints that had been settled out of court. Nothing that explicitly raised red flags, but enough inconsistencies to warrant deeper investigation. August timer hit the 45-minute mark when Ria emerged from the building. She wasn't alone. Adrian Sutter walked beside her, his hand resting casually on the small of her back. They stopped by her car, standing closer than any professional relationship would justify. Adrian said something that made Ria laugh, then quickly scanned the parking lot before kissing her. August took several photos with a telephoto lens attached to his phone. More evidence for the file. The kiss ended, and Adrian handed Ria what appeared to be a small paper bag. She placed it in her purse, nodded at something he said, then got in her car. August waited until both Ria and Adrian had left before driving to his next destination, the university library, where Leo had secured a private research room. Leo was already there when August arrived, surrounded by printouts and an open laptop. You're not going to like what I found, Leo said without preamble. August set down his bag. Tell me. Adrian Sutter worked at a wellness center in Seattle called Pure Life. 5 years ago, one of his clients, a woman named Eliza Brandt, was widowed when her husband died suddenly of what was initially ruled natural causes heart failure. Leo slid a printout across the table. It was a news article with a photo of a grieving woman standing next to Adrian at a funeral. The autopsy showed elevated levels of a compound derived from certain herbal supplements, Leo continued. Nothing illegal on its own, but in high concentrations, it can stress the cardiovascular system. Not enough evidence to rule it homicide, but enough questions that the insurance company delayed payment. Let me guess, August said. Adrian testified about the husband's health. Leo nodded. So the man had pre-existing heart issues that he'd been treating holistically. The case was eventually closed as an accidental death. 6 months later, Adrian moved to Austin and opened his practice here. 9 months after that, Eliza Brandt moved to Austin too. They were briefly together, then separated. August processed this information. So he's done this before. Possibly, Leo cautioned. It's circumstantial, but combined with those text messages you found. He let the implication hang in the air. I need access to their current communications, August decided. And I need to know exactly what compound they're planning to use. That's crossing into legally questionable territory, Leo warned. Not if I only access accounts and devices that are legally mine, August countered. The cloud account is joint, registered to both of us. And I can place monitoring software on my own home network. Leo looked unconvinced, but didn't argue further. What about the compound? That bag he gave her today could contain it. I'll find it, August said. I need to know what we're dealing with. If it's the same substance used in Seattle, that strengthens the case considerably. And then what? Leo asked. Go to the police? August's expression hardened. First, I gather irrefutable evidence. Then I decide how best to ensure they face appropriate consequences. I know that, look, August, Leo said warily, you're planning something beyond simple evidence gathering. I'm planning justice, August replied. Nothing more, nothing less. As he left the library, August's phone buzzed with a text from Rhea. Working late tonight. Don't wait up for dinner. Love you. August texted back. No problem. Take care. Love you too. The words felt foreign, a code he no longer understood. But they maintained the facade, which was all that mattered for now. The house was dark and silent when August finally returned home. Rhea's working late had extended well past midnight, according to the GPS tracker he'd placed on her car earlier in the day. The tracker showed her vehicle parked outside an apartment complex across town, presumably Adrian's residence. August moved through the house methodically, setting up small, unobtrusive cameras in the kitchen, living room, and hallway. Nothing in the bedrooms or bathrooms. He had ethical lines he wouldn't cross, even now. He only needed to document their conversations about him, not their intimate moments that in his office. August connected the cameras to his private server and tested the feeds. Everything worked perfectly. Next, he turned his attention to Rhea's home laptop. She rarely used it anymore, preferring her phone and tablet, but it remained on her desk in the spare bedroom she used as a craft room. August didn't need her password. As the household's technical support for a decade, he had administrator access to every device on the network. Within minutes, he'd installed monitoring software that would log all activity and forward it to his secure server. The final step was the most crucial. August needed to find the substance they planned to use. He started in the kitchen, methodically checking every cabinet, reading labels on every supplement and medication. Nothing seemed out of place that he moved to the master bathroom, searching through Rhea's cosmetics and medications. Again, nothing unusual. Finally, he checked her closet, carefully examining bags and pockets without disturbing their arrangement. In the pocket of a rarely used gym bag, he found the paper sack Adrian had given her. Inside was an unlabeled amber bottle containing what appeared to be herbal capsules. August carefully removed 2, placing them in a small evidence bag, then returned everything exactly as he'd found it. Back in his office, August uploaded all the day's findings to a secure server, then sent an encrypted message to Leo, need testing capabilities for unknown substance. Any contacts in the chemistry department? Leo's reply came minutes later. Professor Diana Vega. Discreet, thorough. Can meet tomorrow. August set the evidence bag aside and turned to his computer. Time to check the cloud back up again. Rhea had been careless in the beginning, leaving traces of her affair in deleted files that August could recover. She'd grown more cautious recently, but people in the throes of infatuation rarely maintained perfect operational security. Sure enough, after several hours of methodical searching, August found a cache of recently deleted videos. His face remained impassive as he watched his wife and Adrian together in various hotel rooms, including one August recognized as the suite he'd booked for a business trip last month, a trip Rhea had apparently made use of in his absence. More damning than the physical betrayal was the conversation August captured in one video. After their encounter, as they lay in August's paid-for hotel bed, Rhea and Adrian discussed him. "He suspects nothing," Rhea said on screen. "He's too wrapped up in his work to notice anything." "Men like him never do," Adrian replied, stroking her hair. "They think their big brains make them invulnerable. I still don't understand why we can't just—" Adrian cut her off. "A divorce would cost you half of everything. Is that what you want? To start our life together with half of what you deserve?" "No, but the compound is completely natural," Adrian assured her. "It stresses the heart initially, but the effects build over time. Multiple, small doses, carefully administered. By the time anything happens, it will look like natural causes. I've seen it work before." "You make it sound so clinical," Rhea said. "It's chemistry, that's all," Adrian replied. "No different from all those programming problems your husband solves. Just a different kind of code." August stopped the video. The evidence was now overwhelming. His wife and her lover weren't just planning an affair, they were plotting his death for financial gain. He should feel devastated, enraged. Instead, he felt a cold clarity settle over him. This was no longer just about gathering evidence. This was about survival, and then justice. August began typing again, outlining a new plan. This time, he wouldn't be the target. He would be the trigger. "You understand what you're showing me is deeply disturbing," Professor Diana Vega said, looking up from her microscope. A compact woman with intelligent eyes behind round glasses, she'd agreed to meet August and Leo in her private lab early on a Saturday morning as a favor to Leo. "I understand," August replied. "I only need to know what it is, not how to use it." Diana sighed. "It's a concentrated extract from a plant called monkshood, mixed with several other herbal compounds. Alone, in small doses, it's sometimes used in homeopathic medicine. In this concentration," she shook her head, "it would cause arrhythmia, elevated blood pressure, and significant cardiac stress. One dose wouldn't kill a healthy adult, but repeated exposure could trigger a cardiac event that might appear natural, especially in someone with any existing heart conditions." "Which I don't have," August noted. "Thank goodness for that," Diana said. "Where did you get this?" August and Leo exchanged glances. "Better you don't know," Leo told her. "But I assure you, we're gathering evidence, not planning to use it." Diana carefully sealed the capsules in an evidence container. "I'll provide a formal analysis for your records, but please tell me you're taking this to the authorities." "When we have enough evidence," August assured her. Later, as they walked across the nearly empty campus, Leo voiced his concerns. "She's right. We should take what we have to the police now." "It's not enough," August replied. "They've been careful. The substance isn't explicitly illegal. The messages are suggestive, but not definitive. I need irrefutable proof of intent." "How do you plan to get that?" Leo asked. "They're unlikely to confess on record. People reveal their true intentions under pressure," August said. "I've devised a scenario that will expose theirs." Leo stopped walking. "What kind of scenario?" "A controlled environment. A private dinner where I can document their behavior and conversations. A situation where they believe they have the advantage, but where I'm actually in control." "You're setting a trap," Leo realized, "with yourself as bait." August continued walking. "I'm setting a stage. And yes, I'll be playing a role, but they'll be the ones delivering the most important lines." "This is dangerous, August. If they're willing to poison you once, they won't have the opportunity." August cut in. "I'll control every element of the environment, including the food. In fact, I'm counting on their attempt." Leo caught up to him. "You've already decided how this ends, haven't you?" "Justice has only one logical conclusion," August replied. "Those who conspire to harm others must face consequences proportional to their intentions." That sounds disturbingly close to revenge. Revenge is emotional. This is rational. August stopped and turned to his friend. "They plotted my death, Leo. Not a quick one, but a gradual poisoning designed to appear natural. They discussed it casually, like solving a math problem. They deserve whatever comes next." Leo studied August's face. Just promise me you won't cross a line you can't come back from. You're hurt and betrayed, and that's completely understandable. But don't let their actions transform you into something you're not. I'm not being transformed, August said quietly. I'm being revealed, perhaps for the first time. The conversation ended there, but August's planning continued. Over the next week, he gathered more evidence through the cameras he'd installed and the monitoring software on Ria's devices. He documented multiple instances where Ria added the capsules to his food or drinks, only for August to dispose of them when she wasn't looking. He recorded her phone conversations with Adrian, their growing impatience with the slow progress of their plan, their discussions of what they would do with August's life insurance and investment portfolio. Every piece of evidence was carefully logged and backed up to multiple secure locations. And with each new revelation, August refined his final scenario, the one that would bring everything into the open. A surprise dinner? Ria asked, her voice carrying the perfect note of pleased surprise. What's the occasion? August smiled across the breakfast table. Do I need an occasion to do something special for my wife? Consider it anniversary part 2. The first one didn't go as planned with you feeling unwell. That's so thoughtful, Ria said, reaching across to squeeze his hand. Where? It's a surprise. A private chef in a special location. I've arranged everything. Just be ready at 7 on Saturday. I can't wait, Ria said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Should I dress up? Absolutely, August replied. It's going to be a night to remember. As soon as Ria left for her yoga class, which the GPS tracker showed was actually another visit to Adrian's apartment, August made his final preparations. He'd rented a commercial kitchen space that catered to food photographers and cooking classes in neutral location with excellent lighting and multiple angles for the cameras he would install. He contacted Adrian through an anonymous email account, posing as a wellness center looking for nutrition experts for a special event. The generous consultation fee he offered ensured Adrian accepted immediately, even when told the event was Saturday evening. August spent the day setting up the kitchen. Cameras were placed strategically to capture every angle. Microphones were hidden in decorative elements on the table. A separate prep area was established where August would prepare 3 identical-looking meals, 1 untouched for himself, and 2 containing a powerful but non-toxic purgative for Ria and Adrian. By 6 p.m., everything was ready. August surveyed the space one final time. The table was elegantly set, the lighting perfect, the surveillance system tested and functioning. All evidence was being streamed in real time to his secure server, with Leo monitoring remotely as a precaution. August prepared the 3 meals, wearing gloves and carefully keeping the portions separate. The purgative he'd chosen would cause significant discomfort, but no lasting harm, a proportional response to their plans for him. Each dish was covered with a silver dome, ready to be served at T6:45. He changed into his suit and prepared for his guests. The final act was about to begin. The commercial kitchen had been transformed. Soft lighting, elegant table settings, and the gentle notes of classical music created an atmosphere of refined celebration. August stood by the door, watching as Ria's car pulled into the parking lot. Right on schedule, his pulse remained steady, his breathing controlled. Months of discovering betrayal and plotting response had honed his emotional control to a razor's edge. Tonight would proceed according to plan, each element carefully orchestrated. Ria entered first, wearing a sleek black dress August had never seen before. Her smile faltered momentarily when she saw the intimate setup. "This is not a restaurant," she said, glancing around. "Better," August replied, taking her coat. "Private chef, private space. Just for us." "You went all out," Ria said, recovering her composure. "It smells amazing. I have a few special touches planned," August said. "But first, I invited a surprise guest for the appetizer course. Someone you've been working with who's helped you so much lately." Ria's eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" The door opened behind them. Adrian Sutter walked in, freezing momentarily when he saw Ria. He recovered quickly, extending his hand to August. "Mr. Keene? I'm Adrian Sutter. I believe you contacted me about nutritional consultation for an event." August shook his hand firmly. "Indeed I did. Please come in." I believe you know my wife, Rhea. Adrian glanced between them, his professional smile never wavering. Mrs. Keene, yes. We've met at the wellness center. Rhea's face had drained of color. August, what is this? A celebration, August said smoothly. You've been so dedicated to your new health regimen. I thought it would be nice to have your nutrition coach join us to discuss how we can both benefit from his expertise. The trap was set. August watched their micro-expressions, the panic behind their eyes, the subtle glances they exchanged, the careful recalibration of their approach. What a thoughtful surprise, Rhea finally said. Adrian has been so helpful with my new diet plan. I'm honored to be included, Adrian added, his voice betraying no tension. August gestured toward the table. Please sit. I prepared everything myself. A special menu designed with wellness in mind. They took their seats, Rhea and Adrian careful to maintain appropriate distance. August brought the covered dishes from the warming area, setting one before each of them with a flourish. Before we begin, August said, raising his water glass, a toast. To health, to honesty, and to new beginnings. The irony wasn't lost on his guests, who raised their glasses with noticeably less enthusiasm. August removed the silver domes with a practiced movement. Herb-crusted salmon with quinoa and roasted vegetables. All organic, of course. This looks wonderful, Adrian said, examining the plate with professional interest. You have culinary talents I wasn't aware of, Mr. Keene. August, please. And I have many interests beyond programming. Cooking is a science of its own, wouldn't you agree? Combining elements in precise measurements to achieve desired results. Adrian nodded, taking a small bite. Excellent flavor profile. Rhea followed suit, though August noticed she was merely pushing food around her plate. It's delicious, August. I had no idea you could cook like this. We've been married 10 years, and yet there's still so much we don't know about each other, August replied evenly. The conversation continued, a delicate dance of pleasantries and professional nutrition advice from Adrian. August ate his meal calmly, watching as both Rhea and Adrian consumed their doctored portions. 20 minutes into the meal, Adrian shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Rhea pressed a hand to her stomach, her face paling. Is something wrong? August asked innocently. I'm suddenly not feeling well, Rhea said. Maybe it's just... The bathroom is through that door, August pointed. Perhaps you need a moment. Rhea hurried away. Adrian was now visibly uncomfortable, sweat beading on his forehead. Are you also feeling unwell, Adrian? August asked. How strange. The food tastes fine to me. Adrian stood abruptly. Excuse me, I need to... Before you go, August said, his voice dropping all pretense of warmth. I think you should see something. August placed the folded note from their anniversary dinner on the table. Your waiter warned me, he said. He worked part-time at the restaurant and recognized you, Adrian. You've done this before. Adrian stared at the note, his face contorting with both physical discomfort and shock. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Eliza Brandt's husband in Seattle? Another nutritional client whose heart mysteriously gave out after months of your special supplements. Adrian's eyes darted toward the bathroom where Rhea had disappeared. This is absurd. I'm leaving. I wouldn't, August said calmly. Not unless you want the police to find you. They're on their way, along with paramedics. Don't worry, what you've ingested won't kill you. Unlike the monkshood compound you and my wife have been adding to my food for weeks. The blood drained from Adrian's face. You have no proof of anything. I have everything, August replied. Every conversation, every text message, every video, the tainted capsules with your fingerprints, your previous victim in Seattle, and now your reaction to this confrontation, all being recorded as we speak. Adrian lunged forward suddenly, grabbing for August, but the purgative had weakened him considerably. August easily sidestepped, watching as Adrian collapsed to his knees. What did you give us? Adrian gasped. Just a taste of your own medicine, August replied, though significantly less lethal than what you planned for me. The bathroom door opened, and Rhea emerged, clinging to the doorframe for support. Her carefully applied makeup was smeared, her complexion ashen. August, we need to go to the hospital, she said weakly. Something's wrong with the food. Only your portions, August replied calmly. Mine was prepared separately. Ria's eyes widened as understanding dawned. You poisoned us. I administered a powerful purgative, August corrected. Temporary discomfort, nothing more. Unlike the cardiac-stressing compound, you've been slipping into my meals for weeks. I don't know what you're talking about, Ria said, but her denial lacked conviction. August reached into his jacket and removed a tablet. With a few taps, audio filled the room. Ria and Adrian's voices from one of the recordings August had captured. How much longer will this take? Ria's recorded voice asked. Patience, Adrian replied. We need to be careful with the dosage. Too much at once would raise suspicions. This way, his heart will gradually weaken until it simply gives out. A tragedy, but a natural one as far as anyone will know. Ria staggered to a chair, collapsing into it. You've been spying on us. Gathering evidence, August corrected. After someone warned me at our anniversary dinner. Who? Ria demanded. Does it matter? What matters is that I know everything. Your affair. Your plot. The compound from the same plant extract used on Adrian's previous victim in Seattle. Adrian, still on his knees, glared at August. You smug bastard. You think you're so clever. Not clever, August replied. Just methodical. While you were both plotting my demise, I was documenting every step. The evidence is already with my lawyer and several other secure locations. What do you want? Ria asked, tears streaking her mascara. Money? Is that it? The question struck August as so fundamentally absurd that he actually laughed a short, harsh sound devoid of humor. What I want, he said, his voice low and precise, is justice. You planned to murder me slowly for financial gain, and you almost succeeded. The sound of sirens grew audible in the distance. Adrian tried to stand, stumbling toward the door, but another wave of cramping doubled him over. They're coming for you, August said. Both of you. The paramedics will treat your symptoms, and the police will take your statements. They already have copies of all my evidence. You can't prove anything, Adrian gasped. It's your word against ours. August walked to one of the decorative vases on a shelf and removed a small camera. It's your words against your words. Every conversation, every plan, every dose administered, all documented. Ria began to sob, her body shaking. August, please. It wasn't my idea. Adrian convinced me. Don't. August cut her off. Don't insult what's left of our marriage with more lies. The recordings show your enthusiasm for the plan once the initial hesitation wore off. You discussed how you'd spend my life insurance, where you'd travel with my investment portfolio. The sirens were very close now. Flashing lights appeared through the windows. August, Ria tried again, her voice breaking. 10 years together. That has to count for something. August looked at her, really looked at her, seeing not the woman he'd married, but the stranger she'd become, or perhaps always been. It counted for nothing to you, he said quietly. Why should it count for anything to me now? The door burst open as paramedics entered, followed closely by police officers. August stepped back, allowing them to take control of the scene. An officer approached him. Mr. Keene? I'm Officer Rivera. We received your call and the evidence files. Are you all right? I'm fine, August replied. They're the ones who need medical attention. Non-lethal purgative in their food. Self-administered justice. Officer Rivera raised an eyebrow. That's a matter for the courts to decide, sir. Of course, August agreed. Everything else is documented in the files I sent. I'll cooperate fully with your investigation. As the paramedics attended to Ria and Adrian, August watched with detached composure. When they were escorted out, Ria on a stretcher, Adrian in handcuffs. Despite his physical distress, August remained behind to give his formal statement. The mask of love had been shattered, revealing the true faces beneath. And for the first time in months, August Keene breathed freely, unburdened by deception. 6 months later, August stood at the railing of his deck, watching the Colorado River flow past his new home. The modest riverside house was a stark contrast to the sleek modern home he'd shared with Ria, but its simplicity suited him now. The trial had been mercifully brief. With the mountain of evidence August had gathered including the chemical analysis of the poisonous compound and the video recordings of Rhea and Adrian discussing their plans. Both had accepted plea deals rather than face full trials. Adrian, with his previous suspicious involvement in Seattle, had received the harsher sentence 12 years for conspiracy to commit murder. Rhea had gotten 8 years, eligible for parole after 5 with good behavior. The sentencing judge had been particularly scathing about the calculated nature of their plan and the betrayal of marital trust. August took a sip of his coffee, listening to the birds in the cypress trees lining the riverbank. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. He'd sold the house, liquidated their joint investments, and started fresh. The settlement had been straightforward since Rhea had conspired to kill him for financial gain. She had forfeited any claim to their shared assets under Texas law. "Nice view," Leo said, joining August on the deck with his own coffee. "Much better than that sterile showplace you had before." "It suits me," August agreed. "Thanks for coming to check on me." Leo leaned against the railing. "No need for thanks. That's what friends do. How are the online classes going?" After leaving his software engineering position, August had started teaching coding to disadvantaged youth through an online platform. The work paid less, but gave him a sense of purpose he'd been lacking. "Going well," August replied. "I have some promising students. One girl in particular has a real aptitude for algorithmic thinking." "And how are you?" Leo asked. The question weighted with months of concern. "Really?" August considered the question. The initial shock had faded, leaving behind a clear-eyed perspective on what had happened. The rage that Leo had warned would eventually come had indeed arrived. Weeks of sleepless nights and sudden, overwhelming waves of anger that had left him shaking. But even that had eventually passed, leaving a certain calm acceptance. "I'm okay," August said simply. "Not the man I was. Not sure who I'm becoming yet, but okay with the transformation." Leo nodded. "I was worried about you for a while there. The way you planned everything, it was so cold, so calculated." "It had to be," August replied. "Emotion would have made me careless." Still, the August I knew in college would have been destroyed by something like this. "Maybe I'm stronger than we thought," August suggested. "Or maybe betrayal reveals who we really are." They stood in companionable silence, watching a blue heron stalk through the shallows of the river. Finally, Leo asked the question he'd been dancing around for months. "Do you regret any of it? How you handled things?" August thought carefully before answering. "I regret trusting someone who saw my love as weakness," he said finally. "But I learned an important lesson. Some betrayals deserve to be punished, not forgiven." "That's a hard way to live," Leo observed. "Maybe," August conceded, "but it's honest. I don't pretend to be more forgiving than I am." A notification chimed on August's phone. Another student had submitted their project for review. Life continued, one line of code at a time. "I should get back to work," August said. "Stay for dinner? I'm trying a new recipe." Leo smiled. "Absolutely. Though maybe you should let me taste it first, just for old time's sake." For the first time in months, August laughed, a genuine sound that surprised them both. Somewhere beneath the calculated logic and measured responses, something human remained, bruised but intact. Not forgiveness, perhaps, but a path forward nonetheless. As August turned to head inside, he took one last look at the flowing river. Water never flowed backward. It simply found new channels when old ones were blocked. He was doing the same, moving forward, carving a new path through unfamiliar terrain. The betrayal would always be part of his story, but it would not be the end of it. The Montana sky hung low and gray, pressing down on Cormac Mac Calloway like an unwelcome hand on his shoulder. Rain threatened, but refused to fall, just like Augustus Calloway had refused to give anything during his life. Now his father's polished mahogany casket sat before him, waiting to be lowered into the cold ground. Mac stood ramrod straight, his military bearing evident despite the 5 years since his discharge. At 42, his face was weathered, eyes hard as gunmetal beneath a furrowed brow. He didn't bother to hide his indifference as the preacher droned on about a man he clearly never knew. Next to him, 17-year-old Sable shifted uncomfortably in her black dress. Mac glanced down at his daughter, the only person who mattered in his world, and saw her fighting back tears. Not for her grandfather, a man she'd barely met, but for him. For a father having to endure this charade. "You okay?" Mac whispered. Sable nodded, her dark hair falling across her face. "I'm fine. Are you?" Mac didn't answer. The question wasn't worth acknowledging. The small gathering of business associates and distant relatives stood around the grave, their expressions more curious than grieved. Augustus Calloway had been respected for his wealth, feared for his ruthlessness, but loved by no one, especially not his only son. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, the preacher concluded, offering the ceremonial dirt to Mac. Mac took the shovel, scooped the earth, and let it fall onto the casket with a hollow thud that echoed his emptiness. He handed the shovel back without a word and turned away. "Aren't we supposed to stay until they lower it?" Sable asked, hurrying to keep pace with his long strides. "He's dead. Doesn't matter anymore." Mac headed toward his truck, a battered black Ford that stood out among the luxury vehicles. "Mr. Calloway." Mac kept walking. "Mr. Calloway, please." He stopped, turned. A balding man in an expensive suit trotted toward them, clutching a leather portfolio to his chest. "Mr. Jenkins," Max said flatly, his father's attorney. "The reading of the will is scheduled for 4 o'clock today," Jenkins said, slightly out of breath. "Your father was most insistent that you attend." Max checked his watch. 2 hours from now. "Fine." Jenkins blinked, surprised by the easy acquiescence. "Excellent. My office downtown. You know the address." "I remember." The attorney hesitated. "Your father left specific instructions." "I don't care." Mac cut him off. "I'll be there. That's all you need to know." Jenkins backed away, nodding. "Yes, of course. My condolences again." Mac watched him retreat before continuing to the truck. Sable climbed in without a word, knowing better than to push conversation when her father got like this. The old truck roared to life, and they pulled away from the cemetery, leaving Augustus Calloway and his legacy behind. Or so Mac thought. Jenkins' office was all polished wood and leather, reeking of money and pretension. Mac sat stiffly in a high-backed chair, Sable beside him. The attorney adjusted his glasses and carefully opened Augustus' will. "As per Mr. Calloway's instructions, this reading is private and limited to family members only." Jenkins glanced at the empty chairs around them. "Which, it seems, is just the two of you." Max said nothing. His father had outlived 2 wives and alienated every other relative. "Shall we begin?" Jenkins cleared his throat. "I, Augustus William Calloway, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament." The legal jargon washed over Mac like white noise. He tuned it out until Jenkins' voice suddenly sharpened. "To my son, Cormac William Calloway, I leave my entire estate, including all properties, businesses, investments, and liquid assets, currently valued at approximately $50 million. Mac blinked. Sable gasped beside him. "This inheritance comes with no conditions or stipulations," Jenkins continued. "Cormac has always done as he pleased regardless of my wishes. I see no reason to attempt to control him from the grave." Jenkins looked up. "There's more, but that's the essence of it. You are the sole heir, Mr. Calloway." Max stared at the attorney, unable to process what he'd just heard. $50 million. His father's entire fortune. "There must be a mistake," he finally said. Jenkins shook his head. "There's no mistake. Everything your father owned now belongs to you." "Why?" The question escaped before Mac could stop it. "He didn't share his reasoning with me," Jenkins replied. "But the will is ironclad." Mac stood abruptly. "How soon can the transfer be completed?" "The paperwork is already prepared. Once probate clears, which your father made arrangements to expedite, the assets will be yours. A month, perhaps less." Mac nodded once. "Send everything to my ranch. In your bill." "Dad," Sable said, her voice small. "Are you okay?" "Let's go," he replied, ignoring the question. Outside, in the truck, Mac gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. $50 million. A fortune built on cutthroat business practices, on destroying lives, on breaking spirits, including his own. "Dad," Sable tried again. "What are you going to do with all that money?" Max started the engine. "Secure your future." "But what about you?" Mac pulled out onto the street. I don't need anything. Grandpa left you everything, she pressed. Doesn't that mean something? It means he's playing games, even from the grave. Mac's voice hardened. Augustus never gave without expecting something in return. This money is his final insult. I don't understand. Mac glanced at his daughter. So young, so innocent despite the hardships she'd already faced. He's mocking me, giving me what he knows I never wanted. But why not just enjoy it? Use it for something good. Mac's expression softened slightly. That's what I intend to do. For you. The rest of the drive passed in silence. Mac's mind churned with memories of belt lashings disguised as discipline, of coldness masquerading as strength, of a childhood spent trying to earn love that never came. Now, in death, Augustus had given him everything except the one thing Mac had ever wanted from him. As they approached the ranch, Sable finally spoke again. I think I'm going to hang out with Lyndon tonight. Clear my head. Mac nodded. Be back by 10. Dad, I'm 17. 10, he repeated, his tone brooking no argument. Sable sighed but didn't protest further. She knew the boundaries, knew the reasons behind his protectiveness. Her mother had taught them both painful lessons about trust. The ranch came into view. 20 acres of land surrounded by a heavy fence, security cameras at strategic points, the house itself built like a fortress. Mac had designed it that way after Anessa left, after the threat started. A place where he could keep Sable safe. He parked in front of the house and killed the engine. Go change. I'll make dinner before you head out. Sable hesitated, then leaned over and hugged him awkwardly. I love you, Dad. Mac stiffened, then returned the embrace briefly. Love you too, kid. He watched her go inside, then sat in the truck a moment longer, staring at nothing. $50 million wouldn't change who he was. Nothing could do that. But it might change what he could do for Sable College without debt, a future without limits. For that, he would accept Augustus' blood money. But he would never forget what it had cost. Night fell over the ranch, bringing with it a bitter wind that rattled the windows. Mac sat in his study, a glass of whiskey untouched before him, staring at the documents Jenkins had given him. Property deeds, stock certificates, bank accounts, a paper trail of Augustus' empire. The security system chimed, alerting him to a vehicle approaching the gate. Mac frowned, checking his watch. Too early for Sable to be home. He pulled up the security feed on his laptop. A sleek black SUV idled at the gate, headlights cutting through the darkness. Mac zoomed in on the driver's window as it rolled down, his stomach clenched. Anessa, 0.5 years since he'd last seen her, since the divorce that had nearly destroyed him. Her hair was different, shorter, dyed platinum blonde, but her face was the same, beautiful and cold. The passenger door opened, and a man stepped out. Tall, muscular, with a shaved head and a jagged scar running down one cheek. Mac recognized him immediately. Bryson Cade, the ex-con Anessa, had left him for after his last deployment. But they weren't alone. The back doors opened, and 3 more men emerged, hard-looking individuals with the unmistakable bearing of criminals. Mac reached for his phone, hesitated, then set it down. No point calling the sheriff. In a town this small, word of Augustus' death and the inheritance had undoubtedly spread. Anessa's timing was too perfect to be coincidence that he walked to the front door, grabbing his jacket. A Glock 19 sat in the safe by the entrance. Mac punched in the code, removed the weapon, and tucked it into his waistband at the small of his back. Then he headed out to meet his past. The ranch's floodlights illuminated the scene as Mac approached the gate. Anessa stood with her arms crossed, Bryson looming beside her. The 3 men spread out behind them, a show of force. Mac stopped several feet from the gate, just out of reach. Anessa. Mac. Her voice was honey over ice. You're looking well. What do you want? She smiled, all teeth and no warmth. I heard about Augustus. My condolences. Bullshit. What do you want? Is that any way to greet your wife? Ex-wife. Mac corrected. The papers were finalized 5 years ago. Anessa's smile faltered. Yes, well, about that. I've been reviewing our divorce settlement, and I feel it was inequitable. Mac almost laughed. You got exactly what you asked for. Everything. That was before I knew about Augustus' fortune. She took a step closer to the gate. Half of that money is rightfully mine, Mac. Now he did laugh, a harsh sound devoid of humor. You're out of your mind. Bryson moved forward, hands curling into fists. Watch how you talk to her. Mac ignored him, keeping his eyes on Anessa. We were divorced long before my father died. You have no claim to anything. Montana is an equitable distribution state, she said, as if reciting a memorized line. Assets acquired during marriage or with the potential to be acquired based on actions during marriage. Save the legal bullshit for someone who cares. Mac cut her off. You're not getting a dime. Anessa's facade cracked slightly, her eyes narrowing. You always were stubborn, Mac. It's why we never worked. We never worked because you were sleeping with half of Billings while I was deployed. Bryson surged forward, grabbing the gate. You son of a... Easy, one of the men behind him said, putting a hand on his shoulder. This man was different, calmer, better dressed, with an air of authority. We're just having conversation. Mac assessed him quickly. Mid-40s, expensive watch, confidence of someone used to being in charge. Dangerous. And you are? Mac asked. Calder Finn. The man offered a thin smile. A business associate of your ex-wife's. What kind of business? The lucrative kind. Finn's smile didn't reach his eyes. Ms. Vaughn has retained our services to help resolve this unfortunate dispute. Mac understood immediately. The Blood Crows. He'd heard whispers about them, a Denver-based gang expanding their territory into Montana, dealing in everything from drugs to murder for hire. And now Anessa was involved with them. There's no dispute, Mac said evenly. Just trespassing on private property. Anessa stepped forward again, placing her manicured hands on the gate. 25 million, Mac. That's all I'm asking. Half of what's rightfully mine. Turn around, Anessa. You're wasting your time. Her expression hardened. That's where you're wrong, Mac. This is my time now. Mac reached over and hit the control panel. The gate slid shut in her face, locking with a metallic click. For a moment, he expected rage, screaming, threats, the Anessa he remembered from their worst fights. Instead, she simply smiled. That smile chilled him more than any outburst could have. We'll be in touch, she said, turning back to the SUV. Finn lingered a moment longer, his eyes measuring Mac. Consider her offer, Mr. Calloway. It would be the sensible thing to do. Get off my property, Mac replied. Finn nodded, as if Mac had confirmed something for him, then followed Anessa and the others to the vehicle. Mac watched them drive away, his hand resting on the Glock at his back. Something had changed in Anessa. The woman he'd married had been manipulative, selfish, even cruel, but this calculated coldness was new and far more dangerous. Back inside, Mac poured himself another whiskey and drank it in one swallow. The burn in his throat was nothing compared to the acid churning in his gut. Anessa's reappearance, the Blood Crow's involvement, it complicated everything. His phone rang. Sable. What's up? He answered, trying to keep his voice normal. Is it okay if I stay out a little later? Lyndon and I are going to catch a movie. Mac checked his watch. 8:30. Be home by 11. No later. Thanks, Dad. Love you. Love you too. Be careful. Mac hung up, debating whether to tell Sable about Anessa's visit. No, he decided. No need to worry her yet. He'd handle this himself. He walked to the window, staring out at the darkness beyond the security lights. Anessa wouldn't give up easily. She never had. But neither would he. Not when it came to protecting what was his Augustus money meant nothing to him. But it meant everything to Anessa, and that gave him leverage. If she wanted a war, he'd give her one. This time, he'd make sure she lost everything. Sable checked her phone as she and Lyndon left the movie theater. 10:15 p.m. She had time to grab a quick bite at Dino's diner before heading home. Your dad's still being super strict, huh? Lyndon asked, pulling her jacket tighter against the cold. He has his reasons. Sable shrugged, unwilling to explain the complicated history behind her father's protectiveness. Come on, you're practically an adult. Doesn't he trust you? It's not about trusting me. Sable led the way toward the diner, its neon sign casting pink and blue light onto the sidewalk. It's about not trusting everyone else. Lyndon rolled her eyes. This town is like the most boring place on earth. What does he think is going to happen? Sable bit her lip, remembering the day her mother had left, the screaming, the threats, the restraining order that came later. It's complicated. Inside Dino's, they slid into a booth by the window. The diner was nearly empty, just a couple of truckers at the counter and an elderly couple in the corner. So, Lyndon leaned forward, eyes bright with curiosity. Is it true about your grandpa leaving you guys a ton of money? Sable hesitated. News traveled fast in Billings. Where'd you hear that? My dad works at the bank. He said Mr. Jenkins was talking about it. $50 million. Is that for real? I don't know the exact amount, Sable said uncomfortably. But yeah, my dad inherited everything. Holy shit, you're gonna be like the richest kid in school. It doesn't matter. Nothing's going to change. Lyndon laughed. Are you kidding? Everything's going to change. You could buy a new car, new clothes. Hell, you could buy the school if you want. It's not my money. It's my dad's. Sable picked at her napkin. And he doesn't care about that stuff. Well, what about college? You've always wanted to go to NYU, right? Now you totally can. Sable smiled slightly at that. Yeah, I guess that part is cool. They ordered burgers and shakes, the conversation drifting to school gossip and plans for the upcoming weekend. By the time they finished eating, it was 10:45. I better get going, Sable said, leaving cash on the table. Dad will freak if I'm late. Want me to walk you to your truck? Lyndon offered. Nah, it's just across the street. I'll text you tomorrow. They hugged goodbye, and Sable stepped out into the night. The temperature had dropped further, the wind biting through her jacket. She hurried across the street toward the small lot where she'd parked her pickup. The lot was poorly lit, most of the street lamps either broken or dim. Sable fished her keys from her pocket, quickening her pace. Something about the shadows between the parked cars made her uneasy. She was halfway to her truck when she heard footsteps behind her. Sable Calloway. She turned. A man she'd never seen before stood a few feet away, tall, wiry, with a tattoo creeping up his neck. Who's asking? She took a step back, suddenly aware of how isolated the parking lot was. The man smiled, revealing a gold tooth. Got a message for your daddy. Before Sable could react, someone grabbed her from behind, a hand clamping over her mouth. She tried to scream, to fight, but another figure appeared, then another. Bring her. A female voice said. Sable's blood ran cold. She knew that voice. They dragged her into the alley beside the parking lot. 3 men holding her while she kicked and struggled. A black SUV was parked at the alley's end, its engine running. Hello, stepdaughter. Anessa stepped into the dim light, her face a mask of cold fury. Sable stopped struggling, shock momentarily overriding fear. What are you doing here? Teaching your father a lesson in cooperation. Anessa nodded to one of the men. Bryson, show her what happens when Max says no to me. The largest man stepped forward, shaved head, scarred face, eyes like empty holes. Sable recognized him from pictures, from her mother's social media before Dad had made her block everything. Please, Sable whispered. I haven't done anything to you. No, Bryson agreed, his voice surprisingly soft. But your father has. His fist drove in her stomach with such force that Sable doubled over, unable to breathe. Pain exploded through her, and she would have collapsed if not for the men holding her arms. Again, Anessa commanded. Another blow, this time to her ribs. Something cracked. Sable's vision swam, black spots dancing at the edges. The old man, leaving everything to Mac, wasn't part of the plan, Anessa said conversationally, watching as Sable gasped for air. I was counting on that money, Sable. Do you know what it's like to count on something, only to have it ripped away? Sable couldn't answer, couldn't breathe, couldn't think through the pain. Hold her up, Bryson said to the others. They yanked her upright. Sable's head lolled forward, a strand of bloody saliva hanging from her mouth. Your daddy thinks he can shut me out. Anessa crouched down, forcing Sable to look at her. That he can keep what's rightfully mine. But he forgets what I'm capable of. He'll kill you for this, Sable managed, each word in agony. Anessa laughed. He can try, but first he'll pay me what I'm owed. She stood, brushing imaginary dirt from her designer pants. Make sure she remembers this night. One of the men, younger, with a wispy beard and nervous eyes, laughed. How much are we supposed to fuck her up, boss? The third man, who'd remained silent until now, answered. Enough to send a message, Skeet. Not enough to kill her. But Bryson wasn't listening. He drove his fist into Sable's face. Her nose shattered, blood spurting across her chin and neck. She tried to scream, but only a gurgle emerged. That's enough, the third man said sharply. Not yet. Bryson hit her again, this time in the ribs where they'd already cracked. Sable vomited, the contents of her dinner spattering the alley floor. "Goddamn, that's nasty," Skeet laughed, jumping back to avoid the splash. "I said enough." The third man grabbed Bryson's arm. "Finn wants her alive." Bryson shook him off. "One more." He leaned close to Sable, his breath hot on her bleeding face. "Tell your daddy, this is just the beginning." He stepped back and kicked her square in the face with his steel-toed boot. Sable's world exploded into white-hot pain. Then darkness began to creep in from the edges. She felt herself falling, the men releasing her arms. The cold concrete pressed against her cheek. Through a haze of pain and encroaching unconsciousness, she heard Anessa's voice. "Tell your daddy to give me my half, or next time, we won't stop." The last thing Sable saw was Bryson's boot coming toward her face again. Then nothing. Mac paced the living room, checking his watch for the dozenth time. 11:30 p.m. Sable was never late, not without calling. He tried her cell 3 times straight to voicemail. He tried Lyndon's number next. The girl answered on the second ring, her voice sleepy. "Mr. Calloway? What's wrong? Is Sable with you?" "No. She left Dino's around 10:45 to head home." Mac's grip tightened on the phone. "She never made it." "What?" "But her truck. I'm going to look for her. If she contacts you, call me immediately." Mac hung up and grabbed his keys, a cold dread settling in his gut. He knew, with the certainty of a man who'd seen the worst humanity had to offer, that Anessa was behind this. He'd barely reached his truck when his phone rang an unknown number. "Calloway," he answered, his voice tight. "Is this the father of Sable Calloway?" A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. "Yes." "Who is this?" "This is Nurse Matthews at Billings Memorial Hospital. Your daughter has been admitted to the emergency room. She was found unconscious in an alley downtown." The world seemed to tilt beneath Mac's feet. "Is she?" "She's in critical condition, Mr. Calloway. You should come right away." Mac didn't remember the drive to the hospital. One moment he was in his truck, the next he was running through the emergency room doors, demanding to see his daughter. "Sir, you need to calm down," a security guard warned, stepping into his path. "My daughter Sable Calloway, where is she?" A nurse appeared, her face grave. "Mr. Calloway? Come with me, please." She led him through double doors into the trauma ward. The antiseptic smell, the beeping monitors, the hushed voices, it all faded away when Max saw the figure in the bed. If not for the dark hair, he wouldn't have recognized her. Sable's face was swollen beyond recognition, a maze of purple bruises and split skin. Tubes ran from her arms, her nose, her mouth. A ventilator hissed rhythmically. "Jesus Christ," Mac whispered, his knees nearly buckling. "She has multiple broken ribs, a punctured lung, internal bleeding, and a severe concussion," the doctor explained, appearing at his side. "We've stabilized her for now, but she's not out of danger." "Who found her?" "A couple leaving the movie theater. They called 911. Mac approached the bed slowly, afraid to touch her, afraid he might somehow cause more damage. Sable looked so small, so broken. His little girl. "We've notified the police," the doctor continued. "They'll want to speak with you when you're ready." Mac nodded mechanically, not taking his eyes off Sable. "Can I have a minute alone with her?" "Of course." When the room cleared, Mac sank into the chair beside the bed. His hand hovered over Sable's, hesitating before gently taking it. Her skin was cold. "I'm here, baby girl," he whispered. "I'm right here." She didn't stir. Only the steady beep of the heart monitor answered him. Mac's vision blurred with tears he refused to shed. Tears wouldn't help Sable. Tears wouldn't punish those responsible. He knew who had done this. Knew why. And in that moment, something fundamental shifted inside him, a line crossed. A decision made. Mac leaned forward, pressing his lips to Sable's forehead. "I promise you, Sable," he whispered against her skin, They will all burn. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even AVOW to IT was a certainty. Mac hadn't moved from Sable's bedside in 36 hours. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting IVs, speaking in hushed tones as if their words might shatter what little peace remained in the sterile room. He sat rigid in the uncomfortable chair, eyes fixed on the broken form of his daughter, listening to the steady beep of machines keeping track of her life that a doctor entered, different from the one who had been there when Mac arrived. Younger, with tired eyes and a clipboard clutched to his chest. "Mr. Calloway? I'm Dr. Reeves. I've been monitoring your daughter's condition." Mac didn't look up. "Any change? Her vitals have stabilized," Dr. Reeves said, moving to the opposite side of the bed. "The swelling in her brain has begun to subside, which is a good sign." "When will she wake up?" The doctor hesitated. "It's difficult to say. The trauma was significant." Now Mac looked up, his eyes boring into the doctor's. "That's not an answer. The next 24 hours will be critical," Dr. Reeves said, meeting Mac's gaze with practiced calm. "If she regains consciousness during that window, her chances improve dramatically. And if she doesn't, let's not get ahead of ourselves." The doctor checked the monitors, made a notation on his clipboard. "The human body is remarkably resilient, Mr. Calloway, especially in someone young and healthy like your daughter." Mac's jaw tightened. "She's 17. "I know." Dr. Reeves's voice softened. "The police detective asked to speak with you when you're ready. He's been waiting. I've got nothing to say to the police. They need your statement to investigate." "I know who did this," Mac interrupted, his voice flat. "And no badge is going to bring them to justice." The doctor tensed. "Mr. Calloway, I understand you're upset, but—" "No, you don't understand." Mac stood, towering over the younger man. "You patch up the results. You don't deal with the causes. That's not fair. Life's not fair." Mac turned back to Sable, effectively dismissing the doctor. "Tell the detective I'm staying with my daughter." Dr. Reeves sighed but nodded. "I'll let him know. Try to get some rest, Mr. Calloway. She'll need you at your best when she wakes up." The door closed quietly behind him. Mac sank back into the chair, rubbing a hand over his face. The stubble had grown into the beginnings of a beard, rough under his palm. He couldn't remember the last time he'd slept or eaten. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except Sable. In retribution, that a soft knock at the door made him look up. A nurse entered, different from the previous shift. "I brought you some coffee," she said, offering a steaming cup. "Black, right?" Mac nodded, accepting it without thanks. The nurse didn't seem to mind, her attention already on Sable. "Poor thing," she murmured, checking the foredrip. What kind of monsters would do this to a child? Mac didn't answer. He didn't need to. The kind of monsters who followed Anessa. The kind who beat a teenage girl half to death to send a message. The nurse finished her checks and left. Mac sipped the bitter coffee, his mind running through scenarios, plans, contingencies. He'd need weapons. Information. A starting point. A slight movement caught his eye. Sable's fingers twitching against the white sheet. Mac set the coffee down hard, spilling it across the side table. "Sable," he whispered, taking her hand. "Can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered, but didn't open. Her fingers tightened weakly around his. "Nurse!" Mac shouted, not taking his eyes off his daughter. "Someone get in here." The same nurse rushed in, followed by Dr. Reeves, who must have been nearby. "She moved," Mac said, his voice cracking. "She squeezed my hand." Dr. Reeves moved to the bed, pulling a penlight from his pocket. He gently lifted one of Sable's swollen eyelids, shining the light briefly. "Pupillary response is good." He repeated the process with the other eye. "Sable, can you hear me? If you can hear me, squeeze your father's hand again." Mac held his breath. 1 second passed. 2, 3, then unmistakably, Sable's fingers tightened around his. "That's it," Dr. Reeves encouraged. "You're doing great, Sable. Can you try to open your eyes for us?" Her face contorted with effort, the bruises shifting grotesquely. But slowly, painfully, her eyes opened, just slits through the swelling, but open. "Dad." The word was barely audible, slurred through broken lips. "I'm here, baby." Mac leaned closer, his vision blurring with unshed tears. "I'm right here." "Hurts," she whispered. I know. We'll get you something for the pain. Mac looked up at the nurse, who was already adjusting the four. This will help, she assured them both. She'll feel better soon. Dr. Reeves performed a quick assessment, checking responses and vitals. This is a very good sign, Mr. Calloway. I'll order another CT scan to make sure the swelling continues to decrease. But her waking up this soon is extremely encouraging. Mac barely heard him. He was focused entirely on Sable, whose eyes kept drifting back to his face despite the obvious effort it took to keep them open. Don't try to talk, he told her. Just rest. You're going to be okay. Sable's lips moved again, so faintly he had to lean closer to hear. Mom, she whispered. It was Mom. Mac's blood ran cold. He'd known, of course, but hearing it confirmed, hearing that Sable had seen Inessa during the attack, sent a wave of rage through him so powerful it nearly took his breath away. I know, he said quietly. Don't worry about that now. Why? Tears leaked from the corners of Sable's eyes, mixing with the bruises. Why would she do this? Mac had no answer that would make sense to his daughter. No explanation that could possibly justify what had been done to her. She's sick, he said finally, in ways I can't explain. But she won't hurt you again. I promise. The doctor and nurse exchanged glances. Mac ignored them. Let them think what they wanted. Let them call the police. It wouldn't change what was coming. The medicine is starting to work. The nurse observed as Sable's eyes began to drift closed again. She needs rest now. Mac nodded, still holding his daughter's hand. I'll be right here when you wake up, he promised. But as Sable slipped back in his sleep, Mac knew he wouldn't be. He had work to do. A war to start. The doctor and nurse left after a few more minutes of observation. Mac waited until Sable's breathing evened out, then gently laid her hand back on the bed. He stood, looking down at her battered face that, in his time as a Marine, Mac had seen what humans could do to each other, had done things himself that would haunt lesser men. But nothing had prepared him for seeing his own child like this. Nothing had forged his resolve like this moment. He leaned down and kissed Sable's forehead. I promise you, Sable, he whispered against her skin, they will all burn. Max straightened, a deadly calm settling over him. He wouldn't be calling the police, wouldn't be making statements or filing reports. Justice wouldn't come from a courthouse, that it would come from the barrel of a gun. Mac drove back to the ranch under a sky heavy with unshed rain. The air smelled of ozone and wet earth, the promise of a storm matching his mood. He needed a shower, a change of clothes, and his weapons. Then he'd begin hunting. The security system chimed as he approached the gate. Mac frowned. Who would be waiting for him here? He pulled up the camera feed on his phone. A Billings County Sheriff's Department cruiser idled at the entrance. Sheriff Tobias Griggs himself sitting behind the wheel. Mac's eyes narrowed. The timing was too convenient. Sable wakes up, mentions Inessa, and suddenly the sheriff appears at his door. If there was one thing Mac had learned in combat, it was that there were no coincidences in war. He pulled up to the gate and rolled down his window. Sheriff. Griggs nodded, his jowly face attempting a solemn expression. Mac, heard about Sable. Terrible thing. What do you want? Just checking in. Thought you might have some idea who did this. Mac studied the man's face. Griggs had been sheriff for 15 years, running unopposed in the last 3 elections. A good old boy who knew everyone's business and made sure things ran smoothly, or so Mac had always thought. Why would I know something the police don't? Mac asked carefully. Griggs shrugged. Just figured, what with your ex-wife showing up in town right before this happened? Might be connected. Mac didn't react. You've seen Inessa? Word gets around. Griggs shifted in his seat. Mind if I come in? Rather not have this conversation through car windows. After a moment's hesitation, Mac opened the gate. He led the sheriff to the house, watching the man's eyes scanning the property, noting defenses, escape routes. Not the behavior of someone making a simple condolence call. Inside, Mac didn't offer coffee or a seat. He stood in the center of the living room, arms crossed. Talk. Griggs removed his hat, turning it in his hands. Like I said, just checking in. Sable's a good kid. Whoever did this needs to face justice. And you're here to make sure that happens. Mac's voice was acid. It's my job. Your job. Mac repeated slowly. Funny how your job didn't include keeping the blood crows out of Billings. Griggs's eyes widened slightly before he controlled his expression. Don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. Mac took a step closer. I think you know exactly who they are and what they're doing here. I think you know they're working with my ex-wife. And I think you're getting paid to look the other way. That's a serious accusation, Mac. Griggs's hand drifted toward his holster. The kind that could get a man in trouble. Trouble? Mac laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. My daughter is lying in a hospital bed, beaten half to death. And you're talking to me about trouble? I'm sorry about Sable. Truly I am. But whatever you're thinking of doing, don't. Griggs's voice hardened. Let the law handle this. The law. Mac moved so quickly. Griggs had no time to react. He grabbed the sheriff by the throat and slammed him against the wall. You mean you? The man on Anessa's payroll? I don't. Griggs choked as Mac's grip tightened. Don't lie to me, Mac hissed. I saw you meeting with Calder Finn at the West Side Motel 2 days ago. Right after Anessa showed up at my gate. It was a bluff, but Griggs's panicked expression confirmed it. Mac had guessed right. It's not what you think, Griggs gasped. They approached me, threatened my family. Save it. Mac released the sheriff, who slumped against the wall, coughing. How much are they paying you? Griggs rubbed his throat, eyes darting to the door. 10 grand a month. To look the other way while they set up shop. And what did Anessa offer for dealing with me? The sheriff paled. Nothing. I swear. Mac moved in again, grabbing Griggs by the front of his uniform and dragging him across the room to his desk. He slammed the man's head down onto the polished wood surface with enough force to split the skin across his nose. Blood sprayed across the papers. Tell me the truth, Mac demanded, keeping the sheriff's face pressed to the desk. 50,000, Griggs blurted, blood bubbling from his nostrils. To find something on you. Get you locked up so she could file for custody of Sable. Mac's grip tightened, his knuckles white against Griggs's uniform. And when that didn't work out, they decided to beat her instead. I didn't know they'd hurt the girl. I swear to God, Mac. God's not listening right now. Mac pulled Griggs's head back and slammed it down again. The sheriff's nose broke with a wet crunch. But I am. Tell me where they're operating from. I can't. They'll kill me. I'll kill you if you don't, Mac countered, his voice calm. And I'll take my time. Griggs must have believed him because he started talking. Old mining camp near the Beartooth foothills. Finn bought it through a shell company. They've got maybe 20 men up there, heavily armed, running drugs in from Canada, distributing throughout Montana and Wyoming. And Anessa, staying at the compound with Finn. They're together. Mac absorbed this, his rage settling into something colder, more focused. Who else is on their payroll besides you? 2 of my deputies. The fire marshal. A judge. Griggs moaned as blood continued to pour from his shattered nose. Please, Mac. I got a family. So do I. Mac pulled the sheriff upright, staring into his bloodied face. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pretend you never came here. Never saw me. Never had this conversation. What are you going to do? You don't want to know. Mac wiped his bloody hand on Griggs's uniform. But if anyone comes asking questions about me or looking for me, you're going to be absolutely useless to them. Understand? Griggs nodded, his eyes wide with terror. If I find out you warned them I'm coming, I'll make sure your wife and kids get to watch what I do to you. Are we clear? We're clear, Griggs whispered, blood dripping from his chin. You're going to pretend you never saw me coming. Good. Mac released him, and the sheriff stumbled back, clutching his broken nose. Now, get out of my house. Griggs fled without another word, leaving a trail of blood drops on the hardwood floor. Mac watched through the window as the sheriff's cruiser sped away, gravel spraying from the tires. He'd bought himself some time, but not much. Griggs couldn't be trusted. The man was a coward who'd sell out anyone to save his own skin, which meant Mac needed to move fast. He walked to the gun safe in his bedroom, punched in the code, and began removing weapons. A Remington 700 sniper rifle, his service pistol, a combat shotgun, ammunition for each. He laid them on the bed, then added a tactical vest, night vision goggles, and his old Marine combat knife. Next came the study, where he pulled up maps of the area on his computer. The Beartooth foothills covered hundreds of square miles, but old mining claims were a matter of public record. It didn't take long to identify several possibilities, and even less time to narrow it down based on access roads and isolation. His phone rang the hospital. Mac answered immediately. "Mr. Calloway? This is Nurse Winters. Your daughter is asking for you." "How is she?" "Stable. The doctor is pleased with her progress. She's in some pain, but that's to be expected. Tell her I'll be there soon." Mac ended the call that he wouldn't lie to Sable. But he wouldn't tell her everything, either. Not yet. Not until it was over. Mac gathered what he needed, loading it into his truck. One more stop before the hospital. He needed to find the weakest link in the blood crow's chain, and he knew exactly where to start. The sun had set by the time Mac reached the eastern outskirts of Billings, where ramshackle houses and trailer parks gave way to abandoned industrial lots. This was where the city's forgotten lived. The addicts, the drifters, the criminals too small time to afford anything better. Mac parked his truck behind a defunct gas station and continued on foot, a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. He wore a nondescript jacket over his shirt, the Glock concealed at his waistband. Nothing about him screamed ex-Marine on a revenge mission. The dealer had told him Skeet would be at a place the locals called the Tin, a dilapidated ranch house with aluminum siding that glinted dully under the streetlights. 3 rusted cars sat in the dirt yard, and the windows glowed with the sickly blue light of television screens. Max circled the property once, noting exits, the number of people inside based on shadows and voices. 4, maybe 5. One of them would be Skeet, the man who had laughed while his daughter vomited blood. He waited in the shadows of a dead elm tree, watching as 2 men stumbled out the front door, arguing loudly about money and drugs. Neither matched the description he'd gotten of Skeet. They climbed into one of the cars and drove off, leaving 3 inside at most. Mac approached the back of the house, silent despite his size. A window was cracked open, voices drifting out. "Finn's gonna be pissed you skimmed that much," a woman said, her voice raspy from cigarettes or meth or both. "Finn can suck my dick." This voice was male, young, cocky. "I did the job. I deserve a bonus." Beating up some teenage girl? The woman laughed. "Real tough guy, Skeet." Mac's hand tightened on the Glock. Target confirmed. "You should have seen her face when Bryson started in on her," Skeet continued. "Crying for her daddy. Pathetic." Mac had heard enough. He moved to the back door, tested the handle. Unlocked. These people felt safe in their squalor. Protected by Finn's reputation, he entered silently, finding himself in a filthy kitchen. The stench of chemicals and unwashed bodies hit him like a wall. Through a beaded curtain, he could see into the living room where the voices came from. Skeet sat on a torn couch, rail-thin with stringy hair and tattoos crawling up his neck. A pipe was in his hand, smoke curling around his face. The woman sat across from him, her back to Mac, equally thin and dirty. "Someone else is here," a third voice said, male, deeper, from somewhere Mac couldn't see. Mac stepped through the beaded curtain, gun raised. "Nobody move." The woman screamed. Skeet froze, the pipe halfway to his mouth. The third person, a heavy-set man with a patchy beard, emerged from a hallway, reaching behind his back. "Touch that gun and you die first," Mac said calmly. The man stopped, hands raising slowly. "Who the fuck are you?" Skeet demanded, eyes wide and pupils dilated. "The father of the girl you helped beat half to death." Recognition dawned on Skeet's face, followed by fear. "Shit, man, that wasn't personal. Just business." "This isn't personal either," Mac replied. "It's war." He shot the heavy man in the knee. The crack of the Glock was deafening in the small room. The man went down screaming, clutching his shattered joint. The woman bolted for the door. Mac let her go. She wasn't his target. Jesus Christ. Skeet tried to stand, but Mac was across the room in 2 strides, the barrel of the Glock pressed against his forehead. "Sit." "Skeet's Saturday. Please, man." "I was just following orders," he babbled. "Finn and that lady, they said." "I don't care what they said." Mac grabbed Skeet by the throat, dragging him off the couch and throwing him into a wooden chair. "You held my daughter while she was beaten. You laughed. I didn't. Lie to me again, and I'll shoot off your kneecaps too." Mac glanced at the wounded man, who was still howling in pain. "Shut up, or you're next." The man bit down on his screams, reduced to whimpering. Mac turned back to Skeet. "Where's Anessa?" "Who?" The back of Mac's hand cracked across Skeet's face, splitting his lip. "My ex-wife. Blonde. Cold. Working with Finn." "The boss lady?" "She's at the compound, man. With Finn." "Where's the compound?" Skeet hesitated. Mac pressed the gun under his chin. "The old Blackburn mine." Skeet blurted. "Off Route 78, near Red Lodge." "How many men?" "I don't know, 15, 20. They rotate through." Mac studied Skeet's face. He was telling the truth, but it wasn't enough. "What's their security like?" "Guards at the entrance. Dogs patrolling the perimeter. Finn's got snipers in the hills during the day. And at night, fewer men, but the dogs are worse. They're trained to kill." Mac nodded. "Who else was there when my daughter was beaten?" "Just me, Bryson, and Vance." "And your ex?" "Vance? Finn's second in command. Cold bastard. He's the one who said to stop." Mac filed the name away. "And Bryson? Where is he now?" "At the compound. He never leaves Finn's side." "Is my daughter the first person you've helped hurt?" Skeet swallowed hard. "No. How many others?" "I don't know, man. A dozen?" "Finn uses us to send messages." Mac's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a zip tie. Hands behind the chair. "Wait, please," Skeet begged. "I told you what you wanted to know, and now you're going to tell me more." Mac forced Skeet's hands behind the chair and secured them with the zip tie. He pulled out his combat knife, the blade catching the dim light. Everything about the compound. Every entrance. Every guard position. Every weakness. Skeet stared at the knife, trembling. "They'll kill me if I tell you that." "I'll kill you if you don't," Mac countered. "And I'll take my time." For a moment, Skeet seemed to weigh his options, calculating his chances. Then he started laughing, a high, manic sound. "You're dead anyway, man. You go against Finn, you're dead. You, your daughter, everyone you care about." Mac didn't respond to the outburst. Instead, he stepped forward and, with a quick, practiced motion, sliced off Skeet's left pinky finger. The laughter transformed into a scream. Blood spurted from the wound, spattering across Skeet's jeans and the dirty carpet. "That's one," Mac said calmly. "I've got 9 more fingers to go through before I start on other parts. Or you can tell me what I need to know." "You're crazy," Skeet shrieked, staring at his maimed hand in horror. "No." Mac moved the knife to Skeet's ring finger. "I'm at war. And in war, there are casualties." The knife began to press down. Skeet broke. Wait. I'll tell you. Everything." And he did. Over the next hour, in between sobs and pleas, Skeet detailed everything he knew about the compound guard rotations, the location of Finn's quarters, the building where they kept their weapons. He drew a crude map with his remaining hand once Mac untied him, marking entrances and blind spots. By the time he finished, Skeet was missing 3 fingers from his left hand, and Mac had used the tip of his knife to remove the man's right eye when he tried to hold back information. "That's all I know. I swear to God," Skeet whimpered, clutching his mangled hand against his chest. Blood soaked his shirt, dripping from the empty socket where his eye had been. The other man had passed out from pain and blood loss. Mac studied the map, committing it to memory. "Where's Anessa staying?" "Which building?" "With Finn." "The main house, 2nd floor, east side." Mac folded the map and tucked it into his pocket. He looked at Skeet, who was swaying in the chair, face pale from shock and blood loss. "Please," Skeet whispered. "You got what you wanted. Let me go." "Let you go." Mac tilted his head. "So you can warn them I'm coming?" "I won't. I swear. You beat my 17-year-old daughter. You laughed while she bled." Mac raised the Glock. "No second chances." The shot echoed through the small house. Skeet's body slumped in the chair, a neat hole in the center of his forehead. Mac wiped down anything he'd touched, then left through the back door. The other man was still unconscious, but alive. Mac left him that way, a witness who could spread the message that he drove to the outskirts of town, to an old railroad bridge spanning a ravine. The place was deserted at this hour. Mac parked, then opened the trunk where he'd stored Skeet's body wrapped in a tarp. It took less than 10 minutes to secure the corpse to the bridge railing with wire, leaving it hanging for all to see. A message, just as Sable's beating had been meant as a message. But Mac's message was clearer. This is only the beginning. As he drove toward the hospital, rain finally began to fall, washing the blood from the bridge and from Mac's hands. But nothing would wash away what was coming. The war had begun. The discovery of Skeet's mutilated body hanging from the railroad bridge sent ripples through Billings. By sunrise, everyone connected to the Blood Crows knew that someone had declared war on them. And they all knew who that someone was. Mac sat in his truck outside the hospital, watching the morning shift nurses file in. He'd spent 2 hours with Sable during the night, enough time to see improvement in her condition, enough time to strengthen his resolve. The doctors had reduced her pain medication, allowing her to speak more clearly. "Did you do it?" she had asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mac hadn't pretended to misunderstand. "Yes." "Good." That single word from his daughter's broken lips had been all the absolution he needed. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mac answered without speaking. "You stupid son of a bitch." Sheriff Griggs's voice, tense and hushed. "Do you know what you've done?" "Sent a message," Mac replied calmly. "You've started a war you can't win. Finn's called in reinforcements from Denver. They're coming for you, Mac. Coming hard. Let them come. Listen to me." Griggs lowered his voice further. "They found me this morning, wanted to know what I told you. I covered for you, but they're watching me now. They want your location, and you're calling to warn me." Mac's voice dripped skepticism. "I'm calling because I've got a family. Damn it. They threatened my kids, Mac." "My kids?" Mac considered this. "What do they want from you?" "To set you up. Tell you I've got information, get you to meet me somewhere isolated. And you do that for them." A pause. "I would have saved my family." "Then do it." "What?" "Call them. Tell them I agreed to meet you. Tonight at my ranch." Griggs was silent for a moment. "That's suicide." "Not for me." "Mac, they'll bring everyone they've got. 20, maybe 30 men." "Good. Saves me the trouble of hunting them down." "You're insane." "No, I'm at war." Mac watched a doctor hurry into the hospital, late for his shift. "Set it up. Tell them I'll be alone at the ranch tonight." Sam panicking, getting ready to run. "They won't believe that. Not after what you did to Skeet. Make them believe it. Tell them I didn't expect the fallout, that I'm in over my head. Tell them whatever you need to." Another long pause. "You better know what you're doing." "One more thing, Griggs." "What?" "If anything happens to my daughter while I'm dealing with this, I'll hold you personally responsible. I can post a deputy at the hospital, one you trust, not one on Finn's payroll." "Done." Mac ended the call. The trap was baited. Now he needed to prepare. He drove to a hardware store in the next county over, where no one knew him. Purchased propane tanks, fertilizer, nails, wire. Basic components for improvised explosives, something he'd learned in Afghanistan. Then to a hunting supply store for more ammunition. A grocery store for food and water. Enough supplies to last several days. By mid-afternoon, he was back at the ranch, transforming it into a killing ground. The barn was his focus. A large structure 100 yards from the main house, filled with farm equipment he rarely used. Mac spent hours rigging explosives throughout the building, connecting them to a remote detonator. He positioned ammunition caches in strategic locations around the property, established fallback positions, created choke points. As dusk approached, he called the hospital to check on Sable. She was stable, sedated for the night. The deputy was in place outside her room. "Good." Mac showered, dressed in black tactical pants and a dark shirt, strapped on his sidearm and combat knife, loaded his shotgun and placed it by the front door, set up his sniper rifle in the upstairs bedroom window with a clear view of the approach road. Then he waited. At 9:38 p.m., the security system alerted him to vehicles approaching the gate. Mac checked the camera feed. 3 SUVs and 2 pickup trucks, driving with headlights off. He watched them stop at the gate, watched men pour out, 21 in total, heavily armed. They cut the lock on the gate rather than try to bypass the electronic system. Smart. They didn't want to trigger any alarms. What they didn't know was that Mac had already disabled that particular alarm, wanting them to think they had the element of surprise. Mac picked up his radio. "Deputy Rollins?" After a moment, the deputy guarding Sable responded. "Here. Status. Your daughter's sleeping peacefully. Room secure. Keep it that way." "Yes, sir." Mac set down the radio and moved to the sniper rifle. Through the scope, he watched the blood crows spread out, approaching the ranch in a standard flanking formation. Someone had military training, probably Finn. That would make things more challenging. He recognized Bryson among them, the scarred face unmistakable even in the darkness. The man who had put his boot in his sable's face. Mac adjusted his aim, centering the crosshairs on Bryson's head. One shot, and he could begin his revenge right now. But that wasn't the plan. They needed to come closer. All of them. Mac abandoned the rifle and moved downstairs. He flicked on the porch light, then opened the front door and stepped outside, hands empty and visible. "I know you're out there," he called into the darkness. "You want me? Come and get me." He ducked back inside as bullets peppered the doorframe. Grabbing the shotgun, Mac moved through the house to the back door. Outside, he kept to the shadows, circling toward the barn. He could hear the men approaching the house, their attempts at stealth betrayed by tense breathing and the occasional whispered command. Mac reached the barn and slipped inside through a side door. He positioned himself behind a tractor, shotgun ready, night vision goggles giving him a clear view of the large main doors. 5 minutes past 10. Then voices outside the barn. "He's not in the house. Check the outbuildings. He's here somewhere." The barn doors slid open. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness. "Anyone see anything? Spread out. Check every corner." 5 men entered, then 3 more. 8 total. Mac waited until they were all well inside, spread out among the farm equipment and hay bales. Then he stood, "Looking for me?" His voice echoed in the cavernous space. The men spun toward the sound, raising their weapons. "It's him," one shouted. "Take him down." Mac ducked behind the tractor as bullets flew. He had seconds before they would flank him. He pulled the remote detonator from his pocket and pressed the button. The world erupted in fire and thunder. The explosion lifted the barn's roof, sending it crashing back down in a hail of burning timber. The walls blew outward, propelling nails and metal debris like shrapnel. The men inside had no chance. Those not killed instantly by the blast were crushed by falling debris or impaled by projectiles. Mac had been sheltered behind the tractor, protected from the worst of the blast. Still, the concussion left his ears ringing as he staggered to his feet. The barn was gone, transformed into a roaring inferno. Around him lay the broken remains of men who had helped hurt his daughter. He checked a shotgun, then moved toward the edge of the destruction. The explosion would have disoriented the remaining blood crows, but they'd regroup quickly. He needed to keep moving. Through the smoke and flames, Max saw figures running toward the barn. Perfect. He raised the shotgun and fired. The first man went down. The second turned to run and caught a load of buckshot in the back. "It's a trap," someone shouted. "Fall back." Max circled through the smoke, using it as cover. He found 3 more men huddled behind a pickup truck, arguing about what to do next. "We need to get the hell out of here," one was saying. "This guy's insane. Finn will kill us if we run," another countered. "Better Finn than this psycho. Did you see what he did to Skeet?" Max stepped around the truck. "You should have listened to your friend." They whirled, but too late. The shotgun roared 3 times, and 3 more bodies hit the ground. Mac reloaded, listening. The ranch had fallen silent except for the crackling of the burning barn. He moved toward the house. Keeping to the shadows, a figure burst from behind a shed, firing wildly. Mac dropped to one knee, brought the shotgun up, and fired. The man's chest erupted in a spray of red mist. 7. Mac counted aloud. Plus 8 in the barn. 15. 6 left, including Bryson. But where was Finn? He hadn't seen the Blood Crow's leader among the attackers. The answer came with the roar of an engine. One of the SUVs burst from behind the house, accelerating toward the broken gate. Mac raised the shotgun, but the vehicle was already too far away. Someone was escaping. Mac let them go. Let them report what had happened here. Let them spread the message. Don't mess with Cormac Calloway's family. He did a sweep of the property, finishing off 2 wounded men he found hiding in the bushes. That left 4 unaccounted for. A noise from the house caught his attention. Mac approached cautiously, shotgun ready. Through the open front door, he could see signs of movement inside, but he slipped around to the back, entering silently through the kitchen. Voices drifted from the living room, angry, desperate. "We need to burn this place down with him in it," someone said. "It's the only way. Finn wants him alive," another voice responded. Bryson's voice says the boss lady wants to deal with him personally. "Screw that. You saw what he did out there. I'm not going back to Finn empty-handed. You want to run? Go ahead. I'll tell him you died like a hero." Max stepped into the doorway. "Neither of you is going back." The two men spun around. Bryson was there, along with a younger blood crow Mac didn't recognize. Both raised their weapons. Mac fired first. The younger man's head snapped back as buckshot tore through his face. Bryson managed to get off a shot, the bullet grazing Mac's left arm before the shotgun's second barrel caught him in the stomach. Bryson crashed into the wall, sliding down to the floor. Blood poured from a wound in his abdomen, soaking his shirt. He looked up at Mac, recognition and fear in his eyes. "You," he gasped. "Me." Mac lowered the shotgun, drawing his pistol instead. "Remember my daughter? The 17-year-old girl you put in the hospital?" "Business." Bryson coughed, blood spraying from his lips. "Nothing personal." "This isn't personal either." Mac raised the pistol. "This is justice." The shot echoed through the house. Bryson's body slumped sideways, a neat hole in the center of his forehead. Mac searched the rest of the house, finding no one else. 18 confirmed dead. 3 unaccounted for, including Finn and, presumably, Anessa. Outside, Mac surveyed the destruction. The barn was a smoldering ruin. Bodies lay scattered across the property, blood-soaked into Montana soil. Phase 1 complete. Now for the main event. The old Blackburn mine sprawled across 30 acres in the foothills of the Beartooth Mountains. Once a source of copper and silver, it had been abandoned in the 1970s, the rusting equipment and crumbling outbuildings left to decay, until Calder Finn recognized its potential as a base of operations. Mac lay belly down on a ridge overlooking the compound, studying it through binoculars. The main house, once the mine manager's residence, stood at the center, recently renovated with new windows and reinforced doors. Around it clustered smaller buildings, barracks for the men, a warehouse for their product, a garage for their vehicles, just as Skeet had described. The attack on Mac's ranch had happened 2 nights ago. As expected, the survivors had fled back to Finn, bringing news of the massacre. Mac had followed discreetly, keeping his distance, using the time to observe and plan. Security had been heightened. Armed men patrolled the perimeter, moving in pairs. Dogs, large Rottweilers and German Shepherds accompanied some of the guards. In the hills surrounding the compound, snipers kept watch during daylight hours. Mac had counted 22 men, not including Finn and whoever might be inside the main house. Some were clearly veterans, moving with the disciplined precision of trained soldiers. Others were street thugs, there for the money and the violence. All were on edge after what had happened at the ranch. Mac checked his watch. 2:17 a.m. The guard rotation would change at 2:30. The 15-minute window when attention would be divided, he gathered his equipment. A suppressed rifle, his sidearm, a backpack of additional gear, and began making his way down the ridge. The moon was a sliver in the sky, providing minimal light. Perfect to the base of the ridge. Mac encountered the first hurdle, a chain-link fence topped with razor wire. He removed wire cutters from his pack and made a hole just large enough to squeeze through, then covered his tracks as best he could. The first patrol appeared 2 men with a German Shepherd, walking the perimeter. Mac froze, controlling his breathing. The dog would smell him if it got close enough that he reached into his pocket and removed a small canister. There, mace effective against dogs and humans alike. When the patrol was 30 yards away, Mac tossed a rock in the opposite direction. The sound immediately drew their attention. "What was that?" one of the guards said, raising his rifle. "Probably just a deer," his partner replied. "Check out anyway." The first guard moved toward the sound, the dog straining at its leash. Mac waited until they were directly downwind, then slipped from cover and approached the remaining guard from behind. His knife entered the base of the man's skull, severing the spinal cord. Death was instantaneous and silent. Mac lowered the body to the ground, then moved to intercept the first guard. The dog smelled him first, growling low in its throat. "What is it, boy?" the guard asked, turning in Mac's direction. Mac sprayed the bear mace directly in the dog's face. The animal yelped and retreated, pawing at its eyes. The guard raised his rifle, but Mac was already on him, driving the knife into his throat. Point two down. Many more to go. Mac moved from shadow to shadow, approaching the compound. When possible, he avoided the patrols. When necessary, he eliminated them silently, a knife to the throat, a broken neck. Each body he hid, buying time before the alarm was raised. Point four guards down. 6. 8. He reached the warehouse, picking the lock with practiced ease. Inside, crates of drugs and weapons lined the walls. Mac planted small charges at strategic points, not enough to destroy the building immediately, but enough to start a fire when detonated. A distraction for later. Next, the garage. Same treatment, small charges on the fuel tanks of vehicles. Mac checked his watch again. 3:42 a.m. The lack of radio check-ins from the eliminated guards would soon raise suspicions. He needed to move faster. The barracks presented a different challenge. 2 large buildings housing most of Finn's men. Too many to take on directly. Mac crept to the electrical panel on the side of the nearest barracks and cut the power. Immediately, confused voices rose from inside. "Power's out. Check the generator." 2 men emerged from the barracks, flashlights in hand. Mac let them pass, then slipped inside the open door. In the darkness, the remaining men were fumbling for weapons and lights. Mac moved among them like a ghost, knife flashing. Screams erupted as men fell. Gunshots rang out, some striking their own comrades in the confusion. Mac exited through the back door as chaos consumed the barracks. The alarm was raised, now shouting, running footsteps, more gunfire. Mac triggered the charges in the warehouse and garage. Multiple explosions lit up the night, followed by the whoosh of igniting fuel. Flames shot into the sky as vehicles exploded and the warehouse began to burn. Men poured from the second barracks, running toward the fires. Mac picked them off with the suppressed rifle, one by one, from the shadows, but his main target remained elusive. Finn would be in the main house, probably with Anessa. Protected, waiting, Mac circled around to the back of the house. A single guard stood at the rear door, nervously scanning the compound as it descended into chaos. Mac put a bullet through his eye, then approached the door. It was locked, but a focused shot destroyed the mechanism. Mac entered, finding himself in a kitchen. The house was silent despite the chaos outside. Soundproofed, probably. Smart. He moved through the ground floor methodically, checking each room. Empty. The second floor, then Mac ascended the stairs slowly, listening for movement. At the top landing, a man appeared with a shotgun. Mac fired twice, center mass. The man crumpled without a sound. 4 doors lined the upstairs hallway. Mac tried the first, a bathroom. Empty. The second, a bedroom, recently used but unoccupied. The third door was locked. Mac backed up and kicked it open, rolling to the side immediately. Gunfire erupted from within, bullets splintering the doorframe where he had been standing a moment before. Mac tossed in a flashbang grenade, turned away, and covered his ears. The explosion was deafening even with protection. Mac entered the room, weapon raised. A man was staggering near the window, disoriented from the flashbang. Not Finn. Mac dispatched him with a single shot, then checked the closet and under the bed. No one. 1 door left. Mac approached it cautiously. No sound from within. He tried the handle, unlocked. Too easy. He pushed the door open with the barrel of his rifle, staying clear of the doorway. Nothing happened. Mac risked a glance inside. A large bedroom, luxuriously furnished. And standing in the center, seemingly unafraid, was Calder Finn. "Calloway," Finn said, as if greeting an expected guest. "I was wondering when you'd get here." Mac entered the room, rifle aimed at Finn's chest. The Blood Crow's leader was younger than Mac had expected, early 40s, fit, with the bearing of a career military man. He wore no shirt, revealing a torso covered in tattoos and battle scars. Most notably, Finn held no weapon. "Where's Anessa?" Mac demanded. "Gone." Finn smiled thinly. "She left about an hour ago. Said she had unfinished business in town." Mac's blood ran cold. The hospital? Maybe. Finn shrugged. Or maybe she's halfway to Canada by now. Inessa tends to look out for herself. You sent her after my daughter. I don't send Inessa anywhere. She does what she wants. Finn gestured to the rifle. Are you going to use that? Or did you come here to talk? Mac lowered the rifle slightly. You're awfully calm for a man about to die. We're all about to die, Calloway. The only question is when and how. Finn's eyes hardened. But I'm not going out from a bullet fired by a man hiding behind a gun. In one swift motion, Max slung the rifle over his shoulder and drew his combat knife. Better. Finn smiled, a genuine expression this time. Much. He reached behind him and produced a wicked-looking Bowie knife. Shall we dance? They circled each other slowly, knives extended. Finn was lighter on his feet, moving with the practiced grace of a trained fighter. Mac was bigger, stronger, but carrying more years and the fatigue of the night's activities. You know, I almost respect you, Finn said conversationally. Coming here alone, taking out my men one by one. That takes balls. Save your admiration, Mac growled. You helped beat my daughter half to death. Business, Finn replied. Nothing personal. That's what Bryson said before I put a bullet in his brain. Something flickered in Finn's eyes, anger, perhaps, or fear. Bryson was loyal, more than I can say for Inessa. Seems you have poor taste in partners, says the man she left. Finn lunged suddenly, knife slashing toward Mac's throat. Mac parried the blow, countering with a strike of his own that Finn barely dodged. They separated, reassessing each other. You're good, Finn acknowledged. Military, Marines, Army Rangers, myself. Finn grinned. This should be interesting. They clashed again, blades scraping against each other. Finn was faster, scoring a cut along Mac's forearm. Mac responded by slamming his elbow into Finn's ribs, hearing a satisfying crack. Finn staggered back, momentarily winded. Mac pressed the advantage, driving forward with a series of brutal strikes. Finn parried most, but a thrust connected with his shoulder, drawing first blood. First round to you? Finn gasped, touching the wound. But I'm just warming up. The fight intensified, both men fully committed now. They crashed around the room, knocking over furniture, smashing lamps. Blood spattered the expensive carpet, sometimes Finn's, sometimes Mac's. Despite the injury to his ribs, Finn was proving a formidable opponent. He fought with the desperation of a man who knew he was fighting for his life, landing vicious cuts to Mac's chest and arms. But Mac fought with something more powerful than desperation. He fought with the cold rage of a father who had seen his child broken. Every blow he landed was for Sable. Every cut, every bruise he received only fueled his determination. Finn tried to create distance, knowing his speed was his advantage. Mac wouldn't allow it, pressing forward relentlessly, absorbing punishment to keep the fight close. You can't win, Finn panted, blood streaming from cuts on his face and chest. Even if you kill me, we both know you'll never find Inessa before she finds your daughter. Mac didn't respond. Instead, he caught Finn's wrist as the man attempted another strike, twisting until the knife clattered to the floor. Finn immediately countered, driving his fist into Mac's wounded side. Pain exploded through Mac's body, but he didn't release his grip. Instead, he headbutted Finn, feeling the man's nose shatter under the impact. Finn staggered backward, stunned. Mac followed, delivering a brutal kick to the same injured ribs. Finn went down hard, gasping for breath. It's over, Mac said, standing over him. Not quite. Finn wheezed, blood bubbling from his shattered nose. He reached behind his back. Mac saw the glint of metal, a hidden pistol. He reacted instantly, driving his boot down on Finn's wrist. Bones cracked. Finn screamed, the gun falling from nerveless fingers. Mac kicked the weapon away, then knelt, pinning Finn to the floor with a knee on his chest. We could have been allies, you know, Finn gasped. With your skills, my connections, we could have owned this state. I already have everything I need. Mac raised his knife, but Finn's eyes widened. Wait, I can tell you where to find Inessa. For real this time. I already know. Mac brought his fist down hard, crushing Finn's windpipe. The Blood Crow's leader thrashed beneath him, face purpling as he fought for air that wouldn't come. Mac watched dispassionately as the life drained from Finn's eyes. There was no gunshot, no dramatic final blow, just the quiet struggle of a man drowning in his own blood. When it was over, Mac stood, wiping his knife clean on the bedsheets. Outside, the compound burned, illuminating the night sky with an orange glow. Most of Finn's men were dead. The few survivors would scatter like rats from a sinking ship. Mac retrieved his rifle and headed back downstairs. There was one more stop to make tonight, one more debt to collect. Mac stood in the shadows of the downtown alley where Sable had been beaten. Blood still stained the concrete, his daughter's blood, now turned brown with age. The sight of it rekindled his rage, banking it to a white-hot core. He called the hospital immediately after leaving the burning compound. Sable was safe. The deputy had reported that no one had attempted to enter her room. Anessa hadn't gone there, but Mac knew where she would be. Not running to Canada or Mexico. Not yet. Anessa was too prideful, too vindictive. She would want to leave a message, something for Mac to find after she disappeared. And there was only one place that made sense, the alley where it had all started. Mac checked his watch. 5:47 a.m. Dawn was approaching, the eastern sky beginning to lighten. Soon, the city would wake. He needed to finish this quickly. A vehicle approached the purr of an expensive engine, the crunch of tires on the trash-strewn street. Headlights swept across the mouth of the alley, then died. Car door opening, closing. The click of footsteps approaching. Mac melted deeper into the shadows, hand on his pistol. The footsteps paused at the entrance to the alley, hesitant. Then forward again, more determined. Anessa appeared, a silhouette against the faint pre-dawn light. She wore an expensive coat, her platinum hair gleaming even in the dimness. In her hand was a small object, a phone, its screen casting a blue glow on her face as she checked it. Mac watched her walk to the exact spot where Sable had fallen. Anessa looked down at the bloodstain, then around at the alley walls. She was looking for something or preparing to leave something as he stepped forward, deliberately scuffing his boot against the ground. Anessa whirled, her hand diving into her purse. "Who's there?" "Hello, Anessa." Mac moved into the faint light, gun at his side, but visible. She froze, eyes widening. Then, remarkably, she smiled. "Mac, you're alive." Disappointed? Surprised. She eased her hand out of her purse empty. "Good choice. I thought you'd be at the compound with Finn." "Finn's dead." A flicker of something fear, perhaps, or calculation crossed her face. "All of them. Everyone who stayed to fight." Anessa nodded slowly. "And now you're here for me." "Yes. You know me so well." She took a step back. "But you're forgetting something important, Mac." "What's that?" "I'm still legally Sable's mother." Anessa's smile returned, cold and confident. "Kill me, and you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. What happens to her then?" Mac almost laughed. "You think I care about prison? About laws? After what you did to her?" "It wasn't personal, Mac. It was about the money. It's always been about the money. Beating a 17-year-old girl wasn't personal." Mac's voice hardened. Leaving her for dead in this alley wasn't personal. She wasn't supposed to be hurt that badly. Anessa took another step back. "Bryson got carried away. I just wanted to send you a message." Message received. Mac raised the gun. "I've got one for you two." Anessa's composure cracked. "Wait, Mac, please. We can work something out. I'll drop any claim to the money. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Too late for that. Think about Sable. She already lost one parent. Do you want her to lose another?" "She lost you years ago," Mac replied. "When you walked out on us for a convicted felon. I made a mistake." Tears appeared in Anessa's eyes, practiced, calculated tears that Mac had seen many times before. "I never stopped loving her. Or you." Mac stepped closer. "You're pathetic, you know that? Still trying to manipulate your way out of consequences." "Mac, please." Anessa was openly crying now, backing away until she hit the alley wall. "I'm begging you." "Like Sable begged? Did you listen when she pleaded for you to stop?" "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Mac grabbed her by the throat, pushing her against the wall. "No, you're not. You're sorry you lost. Sorry your plan failed. Sorry you're about to die." Anessa's hand shot out, something metallic flashing in the growing light. A small pistol, pulled from her coat pocket. Mac caught her wrist, smashing it against the brick wall until the gun clattered to the ground. Always a backup plan, right, Anessa? She spat in his face. Go to hell. You first. Mac dragged her to the center of the alley, forcing her to her knees on the bloodstain. Right here, where you left our daughter to die. Anessa looked up at him, hatred replacing the false tears. Do it, then. Prove what a big man you are. Mac pressed the barrel of his gun against her forehead. This isn't about being a man. It's about justice. Justice. Anessa laughed bitterly. You call this justice? This is revenge, pure and simple. No second chances, Max said quietly. That's what you told Sable, right? Before Bryson kicked her in the face. Anessa's eyes widened. Mac! The gunshot echoed through the alley, cutting off her final plea. Anessa's body crumpled, falling sideways onto the concrete. Blood pooled around her head, mingling with the older stain of Sable's blood. Max stood over her for a long moment, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, no regret. Just an emptiness where the rage had been done. He tucked the gun away and walked out of the alley without looking back. In the east, the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of red. A new day was beginning. 3 weeks later, Max stood on the porch of a cabin nestled in the mountains north of Bozeman. The property was remote, 20 acres surrounded by national forest land, accessible only by a single dirt road. Perfect for a fresh start. Behind him, the door opened. Sable stepped out, moving carefully but without the pain that had marked her first days out of the hospital. The bruises on her face had faded to yellow shadows, and the walking cast on her leg would come off in another week. She carried 2 mugs of coffee, offering one to Mac. Thanks. He accepted it, turning back to the view, mountains rising into clouds, a valley spread out below them. It's beautiful here, Sable said, coming to stand beside him. Peaceful. Mac nodded. They'd both needed peace after everything that had happened. The official story was that the Blood Crows had become embroiled in a gang war that had spilled into Billings. Mac's ranch had been caught in the crossfire, destroyed in an attack that he'd narrowly escaped. One questioned why the gang had targeted him specifically. No one connected him to the deaths of Anessa, Finn, or any of the others. There were no witnesses, no evidence pointing his way. Sheriff Griggs had been found dead in his office 3 days after the destruction of Finn's compound, an apparent suicide. His note confessed to corruption, to taking money from the Blood Crows. He'd shot himself in the head with his service weapon. Or so the official report stated. The few surviving Blood Crows had scattered, fleeing Montana entirely. The organization was finished, its leadership decimated, its operations in ruins. As for Mac and Sable, they'd used a portion of Augustus's money to start over. New identities, new location, new life. The rest had been donated anonymously to various charities supporting victims of violent crime. What are you thinking about? Sable asked, sipping her coffee. The future. Mac glanced at her. Your college applications went out yesterday. NYU, she said, a small smile lifting the corner of her mouth. Do you think I'll get in? I know you will. They fell silent again, watching an eagle soar above the valley. Do you ever think about them? Sable finally asked. Mom and the others? Mac considered the question carefully. No, never. They made their choices. They paid for them. He turned to face her fully. What about you? Sable touched the scar that ran from her temple to her jaw, a permanent reminder of what had been done to her. Sometimes, not because I miss her or anything, just trying to understand. Some things can't be understood, Max said gently. Some people are just broken inside. Like Grandpa. Mac nodded. Like Augustus. Are we broken now, too? Her voice was small, uncertain. No. Mac put his arm around her shoulders. Damaged, maybe. Scarred. But not broken. Sable leaned against him. And for a while, they simply stood together, watching the sun climb higher in the sky. No words were needed. They had survived. They had each other. That was enough. Eventually, Sable straightened up. I'm going to start breakfast. Pancakes okay? Perfect. She squeezed his hand once, then went back inside, leaving Mac alone with his thoughts that he didn't regret what he had done. Not a single death, not a drop of blood spilled. In the world he had known as a Marine, there were rules of engagement, lines that couldn't be crossed. But when those lines had been crossed against his family, the old rules no longer applied. He had gone to war, just as he'd been trained to do. And like every war, it had exacted its price not in guilt or nightmares, but in the knowledge that he was capable of such calculated violence, that such darkness existed within him, ready to be called upon if needed. But as he watched the sun illuminate the valley before him, Mac knew that darkness would remain dormant now. The debts had been paid, the accounts settled. There was nothing left but to live the life that had been salvaged from the wreckage. Mac finished his coffee and went inside to join his daughter, closing the door gently behind him. In the distance, an eagle cried out a sound of freedom, of wildness, of life continuing despite everything, just as they would.